Hello. All right. We've just learned police have begun evacuating all the residences in the area as well, the reporter said. As I said, very little information is being shared at this time, but according to eyewitness reports, the iconic lion statues at the library's entrance have been vandalized. The helicopter footage showed a close-up of the library's sprawling front steps. Once the camera refocused, everyone could see that the lion statues were absent from their perches. Instead, they could be seen standing right in front of the library's entrance, as if the beasts were guarding the front doors. For a split second, it almost looked like the statues were moving. "Did you just see that?" the reporter asked. "It appears the statues are being manipulated somehow. The one on the right looks like it's growling at the approaching police. Oh my, the lion statue has just knocked the officer to the ground. The police are retreating. I've never seen anything like this. If I didn't know any better, I'd say we were witnessing magic." Connor went pale and looked at his friends in disbelief. "Oh my God," he said. "We've got to get to New York City."
Leaving us with that cliffhanger is Chris Colfer, author of, most recently,
The Land of Stories, Worlds Collide, available tomorrow.
The 6th book in the Land of Stories series and the final story.
And the final, the 6th and final book of the series.
And is it definitely the final?
For now.
All right, leaving a little bit of room there. But let's start with the origin story of this series. This is something that you thought of as a child. Tell us how you came up with the idea.
I was about 7 or 8, and my younger sister had been just diagnosed with a rare form of epilepsy where she was having 50 seizures an hour. And as a way to kind of cope with what my family was going through, I started writing and daydreaming about adventures that I'd rather be having than being stuck in doctor's appointments with her and my parents. And that's really how the story came to me. And promised myself then that if I ever had the chance to get it published one day, that I would.
I'm Pamela Paul, editor of the New York Times Book Review, and I'm here with Chris Colfer. You talked about the origins of the Land of Stories in 2011, I think, when you were at the Book Expo America in New York City. And you had this great visual, which you showed, which we don't have today, but you had drawn a map of this entire world that you created. Did you do that too when you were 8 years old? Or
I did. I was very, very visual when I was a kid. I would draw pictures of every character. I'd go to my mom's computer and I would make maps, and I'd make little illustrations on like Microsoft Paint of what every castle looked like, just for my reference. And it's really cool because those are the exact images that made it into the book.
And the book is centered around many fairy tales. You have Grimm's fairy tales that get in there, Hans Christian Andersen, sort of all those classic stories. Were you a big fan of fairy tales as a child?
Huge fan. My mom used to read fairy tales to me when I was much younger. And I'll never forget her treasury of fairy tales that she would read to me had, instead of illustrations, it had like photographs of dolls that were positioned in kind of creepy ways now that I think about it. But it really made the world seem so much more real to me just because it was a photograph instead of an illustration.
All right, speaking of reality, we are answering questions from your fans and readers on Facebook. Jordan Goldberg asks, if you were told you could meet any character from the Land of Stories for 24 hours, who would you want to meet and why?
Probably, I would really like to grab a pint with Mother Goose.
Why Mother Goose?
Even I don't know all about Mother Goose. I think that's why people like her so much, even if I wrote 45 books just on her, her whole story would never be told.
She's a goose of mystery.
She's a goose of mystery. She's been there, done it twice, seen it all 100 times, and I love that you never know what she was up to through history.
And you have her as a babysitter, right, in the series originally?
Yeah, well, you meet her in the second book, and she comes to babysit the twins because something's going on, and they don't know what's going on, but something's happened with their mother, and she comes to look after them, and unfortunately she has a little too much bubbly and falls asleep, and so they sneak off, and they get some information out of her, too.
One of the things that I love about the series, and I think kids really relate to, is you sort of marry the very real world of children born here in this world with the fantasticals and a sort of Steven Spielbergian kind of mix.
Thank you.
In your in books, you also make those real world situations very contemporary with issues that affect people. There's a single mother. Did you consciously do that, and were there issues that you sort of wanted to have reflected in that real world?
It's funny. I think I had such a quick upbringing, I'd say, as a kid, just because of what my own family was dealing with, that reality was never shielded from me. And I knew that kids would prefer to read about characters that had gone through their own fair dose of reality. And I knew that I really wanted them to be sympathetic, and so rather than giving them like a sibling of special needs like I had, which was my kind of my struggle as a kid, I gave them a father that passed away. But and it's interesting because the family started. In the first book, the family you start off and you meet them, they're having some financial issues because the father has passed away. Now the mother has to support the family fully by herself. And although I never intended it to reflect the recession, it ended up being published right in the middle of the recession. So I think every kid knew exactly what that was like.
And you sort of half followed the Disney formula of first you kill off the parents, you killed off one of the parents.
Right, but I didn't kill off the mother.
Right.
So I did the exact opposite of Disney.
So, these are kind of fractured fairy tales. Were you a fan of that? Did you know that was a thing when you started working on these stories as a child?
No, I mean, I'm kind of glad I didn't, because I really wasn't influenced by previous, fairy tale adaptations. I really was just writing what was in my imagination, and really wrote the adventures that I wanted to have with those characters as a kid. And I think I kind of wrote it in a children's language, and I think that's maybe why so many kids have responded to it.
So when you first saw Stephen Sondheim's Into the Woods, were you like, oh my God, he's doing the same
I think
thing?
I might have. There are a couple things like Into the Woods and Shrek where I thought I need to get a lawyer. Like they hacked into my mom's computer and they read my first chapter of my book, and I was like 8 at the time. But no, I think it's good. I loved any kind of. I was obsessed with any kind of fairy tale, anything, just because I love the characters so much. So I was obsessed with Into the Woods. I loved Shrek. I loved the 10th Kingdom miniseries. I loved Mickey Mouse had this cartoon on at the time when I was a kid called House of Mouse, and you'd see all the fairy tale characters mingling. I loved that. So yeah.
Hannah Rebaton asks, are any characters based off yourself?
Yes, the twins for sure are based on me. They represent the yin and yang of my personality. And also the villains, I have to say. I think the villains are based on me, which I don't say publicly as much.
Well, I'm going to make you say it publicly now on Facebook at the New York Times. Which is your favorite villain, and why does that villain reflect you?
I love the Enchantress in book 2 because I just think she's so deliciously evil. And I do have a soft spot for the Evil Queen too. I think what makes a good villain is not giving them a sympathetic backstory, but making you see yourself in the villain. I think that is the trait of a good villain. Like when you find out what happened to them in their past and you realize, I would do the exact same thing. I would totally, have my heart cut out of my chest and turned into stone, like the Evil Queen. Or I would totally keep the souls of my ex-boyfriends in jars on my mantle, like the Enchantress.
All right, well, I know the answer to this question, which is a very happy one. This comes from Carrie Rowley Baker. Are the books going to be a movie?
They are, yes. And I'm so glad I get to finally say that and talk about it. But yeah, 20th Century Fox just bought the film rights, and so they're going to be turning them into films, and I'm lucky enough to get to write and direct the first one.
So what are your thoughts? What are your plans? Like, who are you most excited to cast and kind of recreate on film?
I think I'm most excited for the Evil Queen, just because I think that's, if I was an actress, I would really want that role. And so I'm really excited to work with whoever we end up casting.
One of the things I think also that I think you've noticed too in the stories, there are sort of certain Harry Potter parallels. I know you're a J.K. Rowling fan, but the idea that these twin characters, I don't think I'm revealing too much, are sort of half fairy, right?
Right.
And then, of course, you have the wizards.
Yeah. And one of them's okay with it. The other is not okay with it. He does not want to be half fairy because he does not want his friends at school to call him fairy boy or anything.
Oh, interesting. And you also, I mean, I'm assuming you bring in aspects of sort of teenage or incipient teenage, tweenage, middle school kind of life into the story.
Yeah, definitely. And more so as they get older, because by the time the sixth book comes along, they are almost 16. So they grow up quite a bit. We meet them when they're 11, and then from 11 to 16 is quite a jump in anyone's life.
And do you sort of assume that your readers are aging as they go along, or did you try to kind of keep them within the wheelhouse of that middle grade reader?
I would like to think. I grew up with the Harry Potter characters. I was always the exact age that they were when the books came out, and I hope kids grew up with these characters too, because I know I got so much joy out of that.
Okay, I'm going to read some more response and questions from Facebook Live. Erin Wester Moss says, "Is there a certain artist or songs you listen to while writing?"
Yes, I not a particular artist that I listen to, but I do listen to a lot of classical music, and I listen to a lot of film soundtracks, like to hear the score. I feel like they put you in such a mood. So depending on what kind of tone you're writing, I think it's a really easy way to get there.
Do you find it distracting if you listen to music with words while you're writing?
I do.
Yes.
I can't do two things at once, so I end up writing like the words. I'm like, I'll start writing like super bass or something, and I'm like, wait, Ray didn't say that. I gotta delete that.
So you're turning these into a movie, as we noted earlier, but already you've narrated the books yourself on audio. Mm-hmm. What was it like to give voice to these characters?
Exhausting. I think audiobooks are probably the most tiresome project I've ever been part of, because you literally you're in a small room like this for 8 hours a day just reading until your voice goes out. And you're performing every character. You're doing all these crazy voices, and it was really like I said, exhausting. But people really enjoyed them, so I have to keep doing them.
And did you know what the voices would sound like? Did you spend time kind of practicing and trying out different voices for each character?
Accents I would try. Because I try to read in a British accent for anyone that lives in the fairy tale world, which got really tough when you're going back and forth between an American narration and the different voices. So my accents aren't great, but they're fairly good. So I practice the accent, but like when it comes to like pitch and cadence, I just like mimic the voice that's been inside my head for so long.
I'm like, did you do like a Cockney accent for certain characters?
For some, each one I try to do a little bit of a different twist on.
All right. Amy McCullough asks, what do you do in your rare downtime to take care of yourself and recharge?
That's a very good question. I think being lazy is an art form, and I try to be as lazy as possible. I sit, do a lot of sitting. I float in my pool. I watch TV, but I hate resting. I know that sounds weird, but I really I get so much enjoyment and bliss out of working that I always like to be doing it constantly.
Are you inspired by other children's books authors?
I don't read too many other children's books, just because I don't want to be the creepy guy reading a kid's book on a plane or anything like that. But I kind of just take it all from the joy that I got out of when I was a kid reading them.
All right. Many of the people on Facebook are curious about how you got started. And Barbie Feruz asks, what do you say to kids who want a future in the arts? And Esme Verueta asks, any advice you would give to anybody who wants to be an author?
Well, I think it's never too late to start, and start as early as you can, because the longer you work at it, the better you become, and the better your material becomes. And the best thing about any form of writing is you don't need anyone to do it. You can just do it by yourself. You don't need anyone's approval, and you don't need someone's permission.
We're talking to Chris Colfer, who is the former star of Glee and the author of, as of tomorrow, 13 books. Most recently, the one we're discussing today, Worlds Collide, the last installment of the World of Stories. You didn't expect it to go on for 6 books, did you?
No, I thought it would just be one book, and luckily that did very well. So I did a second one, and that did even better than the first. So I thought, okay, I'll do 2 more, and then it'll be 4, but then I'll stop at 4. And then by the time I finished the third book, I was so sad that there's only one more book left. I thought, no, I got 3 more in me. And I'm very, very glad I made that decision because originally the 4th book, the 5th book, and the 6th book were all just going to be one big, long book. And I'm so glad I split them up into 3 because there's so much story there that I wouldn't have done it justice.
And now you can do 8 movies based on the 6.
And I can do 8, yeah, right. I wonder about that. I wonder how many movies will end up being.
How many of the stories did you actually have in your head from childhood, since this was something you thought of when you were 7?
Just the first book, really. I always kind of knew where they would go and what might happen to them in various daydreams as a kid. But I never really planned on writing write a full-fledged story for any of it. So I was just as surprised as the readers were.
Jessica Bento asks you, do you see yourself doing more acting or writing in the future?
I don't know. I really enjoy being behind the camera. A lot less pressure. I don't have to worry about being puffy the next day. But I still, I don't know. I go back and forth, but I think that's okay. I think it's okay just to kind of to go in the path that your heart is in at that moment. So I'm sure that'll change, and I'll want to be acting again soon.
All right. Well, we have the inevitable follow-up question from Caitlin Dillon, who says, "I know you'll be directing the Land of Stories movies." She went plural, just so you know.
Oh, thank you.
But
wishful thinking.
Will you also be in the movie as well? Are you going to cast yourself in a role?
I don't think so. I think it's a little self-obsessed to write a book and then direct it and write it and cast yourself in it. I know a lot of people want me to play Froggy in the book series, but I think we can find someone even better than me.
But if you could play any role?
Well, I could play any role. I would love to play Mother Goose, but I'm not sure I'm ready to do the whole Tyler Perry thing yet.
Well, since she's such a goose of mystery, maybe it'd be hard to get into the core of her character.
Maybe it would, yeah.
Diana Marie says, you juggle so many projects, probably more than we know about, although feel free to tell us here. Along with a personal life, have you discovered a cure for sleep, and can you share it with us?
No, my God, sleep is my worst enemy because I never get enough of it, and whenever I do get it, it's always very, very abusive. But no, I mean, God, I hope one day I can actually teach myself how to.
All right, for kids who've not yet read the series, give us a sense of the kind of story arc from the first book, The Witching Spell, kind of up through Worlds Collide.
Well, the whole series is about a pair of twins named Connor and Alex, brother and sister, and one day they inherit a magical storybook from their grandmother, and it comes to life. It's magical, and it sucks them into the fairy tale world. And the first book and the second book and third book, they have adventures in the fairy tale world, and then the fourth book, they have adventures in classic literature. So they travel to worlds like Wonderland and Neverland and Sherwood Forest and Camelot, and in the fifth book, they actually travel into their own stories, into Connor's short stories, his creative writing. So they get to see characters that they actually invented come to life before their eyes. And then the sixth book, which comes out tomorrow, is all about all those worlds colliding and emerging in the middle of New York City.
And the New York Public Library also.
The New York Public Library, right? Yeah. So if we do get to that movie, it's going to be a very expensive shoot.
How did you decide to end the story in New York?
I really wanted a place in this world, or the other world, as it's called in the series, that represented the world at its fullest. And I think New York City is one of the best cities in the world, and I couldn't quite think of another city that kind of captivates. What this world is all about more so than New York.
So you've gone everywhere from picture books up to YA, but Smith K. Albuquerque asks, will you write adult books as well?
I've always written my reading level, and so I'm quite comfortable in that. But I love kids because kids, they're very critical, but they're never critical in a malicious sense. They really, when they're critical about something, it's because they care about characters and they don't want to see them get hurt. They want to go on more adventures with A, B, and C. But sometimes adults, they don't really have that, and so I really enjoy writing for kids for that reason.
I'm Pamela Paula, editor of the New York Times Book Review. I'm here with Chris Colfer, author of the Land of Stories series and many other books. And I think kids are probably coming home from camp or having their quiet indoor afternoon time now. So I hope you'll send in many questions on Facebook. We have one here from Charity Grace Lynn. Which book cover is your favorite?
Oh gosh. I don't know. I really kind of love this one. I think it's so. This one. I'm going to hold up close for you to see it, but I think it's just so adventurous, and it has characters from every single book on the cover, and I love that it's a very ethnically diverse cover too, which is something you unfortunately don't see much in a lot of middle grade stuff. So maybe this one, I think.
Is that Mother Goose that's
this is
in flight?
You got Marina, the witch, and you got Emeralda, the fairy, and you got Lester, which is Mother Goose's sidekick, I guess, and then the twins, of course, riding him through New York City.
Tara Cassidy asks, what characters would you want to meet if you were in, and I love this, TLOS, and she also has some heart emoticons, which I don't know how to articulate, but there you go.
Which character would I want to meet? Ooh, I got to go back to Mother Goose. I just feel like she and I would get along so well. And I know one of my favorite things in the whole world is to listen to someone with good stories. And I just know she's got some great stories.
All right, I'm going to ask a variation on that question. Which character would you least want to meet?
Ooh, that's a really good question. Probably the Enchantress. I don't think I'd want to cross paths with her. Yeah, she's a little much, I imagine.
All right, another question here from Mikey Ahrens. Can you please give advice for someone feeling invisible and struggling to find purpose? Also, you are amazing, with 3 exclamation points.
Oh, well, thank you. Well, I think it's really important to remember that purpose comes from within. It's not something that's granted to you, and you don't need permission to have a purpose. I would take all of those feelings that you're feeling now, and I would use them to work towards a goal that will make you feel less insignificant. But also remember, there's some beauty that comes with being insignificant. So in case you're headed down a path like I am, and enjoy the anonymity while you have it.
Will you tell us what lessons do you think? Did you find that you wanted to incorporate messages to kids through the stories, through the characters?
I did. I don't want a book that's. I never wanted to write a book that was preachy. I think you lose kids' interests right off the bat if it becomes a story about morals and whatnot. So I try to use those lessons that I want to project onto them. I try to use that as more like character development and things I trick kids into believing and to understanding.
All right, I'm going to let a few more people get in questions here for Chris Colfer, author of the Land of Stories series and other books. Kristen Curtis asks, what do you enjoy most about doing a book tour other than being on Facebook Live at the New York Times?
This is the peak. I don't know. I love. There's nothing more rewarding than talking to people who've read your writing and enjoy it. There's nothing more exciting than kids asking you about characters like they're real people. I love that.
All right, another question here, a non-book question, but we'll allow it, from Daisy Arthurs. What are your favorite movies to help cheer you up?
Ooh, it's a very good question. I love Hook, Steven Spielberg's movie Hook with Robin Williams. It's one of my favorite movies. I love The Devil Wears Prada. What else? I love Sister Act. That always puts me in a good mood. And Chicago's a good one. I think those are some
Whoopi Goldberg was one of your inspirations.
Oh, I still want to be Whoopi Goldberg. She's still my hero.
Still a goal to have in mind.
Still a goal to be.
All right, let's bring it back to your new book coming out tomorrow, Worlds Collide, Book 6 of the Land of Stories series. If you were trying to persuade a child who has not read the series to read the series because of where they're going to get in this final book, what would you say?
Ooh, I'd say read The Land of Stories because it is a guaranteed adventure. I think you're going to have a lot of fun with it.
All right, let's end. Can you read us one more little snippet from the series?
Sure. Give me a second. Talk amongst yourselves.
All right, I'm going to let's
find a good page
while
here.
He's looking, I'm just going to give so that some of you know that you were heard here at the New York Times. at Facebook Live with Chris Colfer. Alexis Broadman asked if you were a character in the Land of Stories, who would you rather have as your sidekick, Brian or Cooper?
Oh gosh, well, with Cooper, I think Cooper would be a wonderful help and a wonderful assistant to have, whereas Brian might get a little power hungry and take over the whole ship. So maybe Cooper. I think Cooper would be more supportive. Brian would just pull a coup and take it all over.
All right, we will not distract you now from finding the next bit to read.
All right.
We are here with Chris Colfer, and he is going to read from his new book, out tomorrow, Worlds Collide, which is the series finale of the Land of Stories.
All right, here we go. Okay, here's a little excerpt from the prologue. And this takes place when Connor himself is in the future, when Connor is a best-selling author, and he's speaking to a crowd of people. You've had plenty of opportunities to write for adults, but you've always stayed in the realm of middle grade. Why do you enjoy writing for children? I suppose I just like children more than I like adults, the author said with a shameless shrug. No matter how much the world evolves, the children of the world will never change. Every child is born with the same need for love, respect, and understanding. They're unified with the same fears, compassion, and convictions. They're tormented by an endless curiosity, a thirst for knowledge, and a desire for adventure. The greatest tragedy in life is how soon children get robbed of these qualities. We could accomplish great things if we held on to such a fresh point of view. Think about how wonderful this world could be if we all saw it through the eyes of a child.
What a perfect way to end.
Thanks.
Chris Colfer, thank you so much. The new book is called, let's show it to our
Land of Stories,
viewers.
Worlds Collide.
All right. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.